On the Pakistani side, how big an issue is the Durand Line? Is that a huge issue in terms of this Afghan Punjabi clash?
The Durand Line is the fundamental issue behind the clash. So, for instance, I'm Sri Lankan, we are an island, you're Indian, you guys are a peninsula. Unfortunately, we will never really understand the true pain of a landlocked country. As you know, it's very, very difficult for a landlocked country to become prosperous. It's impossible for a landlocked country to become prosperous in a turbulent neighborhood. And many Afghans, particularly in strategic discussions and all that, have now increasingly started pointing out that the Durand Line is paralyzing them, is crippling them, and is keeping them in a state of perpetual poverty. And as you know, it's essentially split the Pashtuns into two different regions, which none of them really want to acknowledge. So if we could just go into a quick 1 minute history lesson, the British were always perpetually paranoid that the Russian Empire would be a threat to them in South Asia. That was their major concern at that time. And after about 3 Afghan wars, because as we all know, Afghanistan is very easy to invade and very difficult to hold, as the saying goes. So after 3 Afghan wars, they realized that there are certain parts of Afghanistan which they could control and certain parts of Afghanistan which were just too wild for them to control. So they created the Durand Line for them to have a safe and secure border. And the losers were the overall Pashtun populations in these parts of the world. So as far as that British legacy and the Durand Line is concerned, to this day, it's the impracticality of the Durand Line and the inability, not the inability, the unwillingness of the Pashtuns to actually accept that. And when we think about it, they really are the victims of it, right? Even though the whole of South Asia, more or less, is a victim of colonial borders, this is a clear-cut case of people just being strangled into a landlocked landmass, which they really want to break out of now. So, for instance, when we look at the FATA, the federally administered tribal areas, at this point of time, the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban, is not willing to relinquish control of whatever they have in the FATA region. The Afghan Taliban has made it quite clear that this is a two-way problem between the Pakistani Taliban and the Pakistanis. And they've said, look, we can facilitate ceasefires and all that, but we are not going to crack down on the Pakistani Taliban. And you have, unfortunately, the Pakistani government, which was a big supporter of the Afghans taking over in 2021. Because if we remember, Pakistan always accused the Ashraf Ghani government of harboring the Pakistani Taliban. And they thought that when the actual Taliban took over, that they would start cracking down on these guys. But the Afghan Taliban is unwilling to crack down on them because they know that the Pashtuns will not let that slide. They will not let that Durand Line stay there because it's true that the Taliban are a Muslim extremist group. Everybody knows that. But what a lot of people don't know is that at heart, the Taliban has always been a Pashtun nationalist group. At heart, they have always been a Pashtun nationalist group. At heart, they have always believed that Pashtun and Afghan mean the same thing. And they are simply now unwilling, now that they see weakness on the Pakistani side, and now that they see the international community disengaging from the region at large, they know that this is the right time to challenge the Durand Line. And they will not stop until they have at least done everything that they can to chip away at the legitimacy of that line.